Plug in a Hyundai EV and the extraordinary happens. From the charge time and range in the Ioniq 5 and 6 to the adventurous spirit of the Kona Electric to the 601 horsepower Ioniq 5N. Hyundai EVs make the extraordinary electrifying. There's joy in every journey.
EPA estimated 303-mile driving range for 2024 Ioniq 5 SE SEL Limited rear-wheel drive and 361-mile driving range for 2024 Ioniq 6 SE long-range rear-wheel drive with fully charged battery. Actual range may vary. Visit HyundaiUSA.com or call 562-314-4603 for more details.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Chasing Excellence. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Patrick.
Good, man. We are going to talk about something today. This was triggered in some part by a question that a listener sent in. It was at least close enough to this that I'm going to give him credit. And the idea was like, you know, we talk obviously a lot about excellence, about chasing excellence, about all of these things. But what happens when we have however we define excellence, right? Whatever we might be aiming for or chasing. What happens when we do that is we tend to have really high expectations for that thing, for ourselves in pursuit of that thing. And what can happen, I think, if we're not careful, is we let those expectations get really high. And the high expectations then create stress. They create whatever we want to call that: stress, fear, anxiety, whatever, such that we actually do ourselves a disservice in pursuit of that thing because the stress is weighing us down, whatever it's doing to us, either physically, emotionally, whatever. And so I wanted to just kind of present this bit of a paradox to you. Like, when we have high expectations for ourselves, what do we need to do to ensure that the stress that we don't add stress to ourselves, such that we're actually not going to do ourselves any favors and not get us to the place we want to go? So just want to throw that out to you and just kind of get your initial thoughts and then see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, it's something that everybody should have a level of awareness of, whether you're an athlete, you're going to be doing a public speaking event, or there's any sort of, everyday life. Like, everyone has expectations of what they want from their family life, from their business, from a financial perspective, from all these different areas. And here's you said a paradox. There is a dichotomy to this, which is excellence is the appropriate blend, balance, and or combination of discipline and surrender. And when you have those two things together, that's what creates excellence. It's not just one of those things. And people either edge towards one side of this spectrum than the other, one side of the curve, the bell-shaped curve. Either they are the type A's, the go-getters with all of this expectation, all of this discipline, all of this willpower, commitment, drive. And we all know people, if we're not those people themselves that listen to this podcast, we know who those people are. But those people, if we don't also balance that with the appropriate levels of letting go, staying present, not giving a damn.
Yep.
We need that, because otherwise what you do is you ramp up all of this and you're going to burst. Now, that level of discipline and surrender and the appropriate balance between the two is individual. There's not a magic. There's not the right amount of it. So there are certain people that compete that do better. I throw the word compete in there because I'm thinking of athletes, but there are certain people that perform better with higher levels of expectations. Think about people like Michael Phelps. He wants the pressure. He wants that. But then there's the other side, which people might not go to. And I'm throwing Michael Phelps out there. I don't know if that's actually truly the case. But I think a really awesome example of this dichotomy between discipline and will and letting go and surrendering is someone like Tom Brady. So Tom Brady, I don't think there's anyone in the world that would question his work ethic or his commitment to his craft or his pursuit as trying to be the best football player that's ever lived. Every teammate he's ever had has been like, he's the hardest worker there. He's the first one there, last one to leave, watches film in all his spare time. He does more body work. He pays more to his nutrition. So he's super disciplined, incredibly disciplined. Before his first Super Bowl appearance, which most people would be so amped up, AKA, fill in the word, anxious, nervous, overexcited, he fell asleep in the locker room. He literally fell asleep. So he's surrendering to the moment. If he throws an interception, he's able to let that flow through him. We can't have just all the yin. You need the yin and the yang, and it's the appropriate blend based off of you as an individual of where that actually works the best. And we can get all into the other nuancy pieces of it, but that's the framework. Peak performance, excellence, happens when you have the appropriate blend of discipline and surrender, the appropriate level of willpower and drive and not caring, honestly, like letting things just kind of happen and not stressing out or freaking out. And that's the reason why we talk about expecting challenges, expecting adversity. It's not going to go perfectly. And what we're saying there is when these things happen, we don't need to overanalyze them. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong. It's not about being perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. Like people think that the disciplined people are looking for perfection. If they are, they're going to shortchange themselves. I don't know where on the level, is it they shortchange 1% or 50%? I don't know, but they're not going to reach their full maximal potential because they will be operating with a level, as you said, of expectation that can't be met. This is why Vince Lombardi said, we will chase perfection. Chase it. We are not going, this is not his words. We are chasing perfection, end quote. Because perfection then he said it. We will chase perfection, knowing full well it is unattainable. But in that pursuit, we may harness excellence. We don't need to chase perfection. And that's what happens when people get the expectations too high. Because the definition of happiness, and I know we're not talking about happiness right now, but happiness happens with expectations minus your reality. So if your reality is greater than your expectations, you're happy. If your reality is less than your expectations, you're sad. This is why teams that went 1-10 in one season and end up just sneaking into the playoffs by going 9-7 the next year, they're so psyched and pumped and happy because that's higher than their expectations. It's really, really simple. Whereas teams that are coming off a Super Bowl appearance, go 9-7, lose the first game of playoffs and just sneak into playoffs, it's a massive disappointment. Well, how are you going to perform better? In a disappointed state or in a joyful state where you are loving the current moment? It's pretty obvious, and we know through all of the research that peak performances happen with a positive mindset, not a negative one. If you hate where you are at this moment, you will not reap all the benefits of this moment.
Is one of the strategies to find this right balance, and I love that, between the discipline and the surrender, is one of the strategies to, it sounds funny, but to simply have lower expectations? Right? If I'm a CrossFit Games athlete, I don't think the answer is like, I'm just happy to be here and I just want to perform well, right? Because we've talked about that before as well. So like, what is the practical strategy for making sure as best we can that expectations and reality are in that right balance so that we are performing within the right mindset?
So it's not a matter of lowering your expectations. That's what people think when they hear that. They're like, okay, so I'm just going to assume that we're not going to win any games this year. If we win one, we'll be happy. It's not that at all. It's about eliminating thinking about that at all. It's literally letting go of. So this is where people get missed, and they think that they hear the cliche and they label it as a cliche, which is let go of everything you cannot control. This is what it means. People go like, okay, so I can't control the weather. So like what? And yes, what that means is if it rains when you go camping, you don't get disappointed. This is what it does. This doesn't just happen. Just like it takes you 10 years to be able to clean and jerk 365 pounds. If you're a CrossFit Games athlete, it takes you 10 years of working on this to where you walk into the games with no expectations. And I don't mean lowering your expectations. That's not what this is. Because if you go in there going like, okay, as long as I make it through the first cut, then I'll be happy. You've lowered your expectations. That's not what we're talking about. It's not about lowering your expectations. It's about removing them. You literally remove all the wants and desires. Now, this is, again, different people operate differently. And if you're not at this level, this will come as a negative in your performance, because then you just go like, now I'm totally lost. Now I don't know what I want, and I don't know what's good and what's bad, and where's my drive and where's my motivation. But at the highest level, you are letting go and surrendering. It is Michael Jordan saying, why would I ever worry about missing a shot I haven't taken yet? What he's doing is suspending judgment. Judgment is weighing the pluses and minuses of the expectation. If he's about to take the final shot to win the NBA championship, and as he's catching the inbound pass, he's thinking about the expectations of making this, what's going to happen then is the consequences of the pluses and minuses of making or missing it will seek into his subconscious, or worse, his conscious. And at that moment, now he is going to slow down. He's going to become mechanical, because as you go into that process, we are moving up into the beta wavelengths, and you are moving into high level beta, which is a stress induced state. And in that state, you cannot operate at your highest potential, because you are going to be thinking too much and as opposed to letting the 10,000 hours just flow out of you. An example of this would be as regular human beings. Think about going down a flight of stairs super fast. Just like visualize yourself doing that. And you just kind of like, it just happens. Well, if I ask you to think about the consequences of you making it down successfully or falling, you automatically start to think about the mechanics of those movements. And you will slow down at best. At worst, you trip and fall. What we need to be able to do is have the discipline, the willpower, the drive to focus on the things that get us to that performance level. When it's time to perform, you need to sit behind that and operate on a subconscious level. You literally let it all go. I can't overemphasize that enough. You literally let it all go. So you're saying, do you lower expectations? Nope. That's expectations. What you've done there is you're doing the worst thing. Now you're trying to change something. That's even worse than just let it go. And here's the practice. We practice with the really small stuff. So when you wake up in the morning and you're nervous about coming on the podcast, you're nervous about a job interview, you're nervous about, am I going to be, are words going to flow out when I sit down to write my memoir? Like anything that you're like, you feel yourself getting anxious about some sort of judgment you're placing on a performance. Those tiny little things, you just recognize that that's happening and try to sit behind it. You don't try to change it. You just let it flow through you. It's happening for so many evolutionarily biological reasons. It's hardwired into your DNA for a survival mechanism. I feel like we talk about this all the time. It's not your fault that you're having those thoughts. So you don't judge yourself for having the thoughts. But when those thoughts come in and you feel yourself change a little bit, you just go, oh, here's the moment. Can I let this bypass me? If you practice on all these little things, like practicing with a 95-pound clean and jerk, then all of a sudden, over time of working on these little ones, it builds up to where you can handle a TED Talk, where you can handle going on the stage at the CrossFit Games to hit a 1-rep max snatch to win. You can handle taking the last shot because you have worked so much on letting it go and surrendering to that moment. Just let the moment happen. If you do, you'll be able to go down the stairs super fast without thinking about it, because your actual best self will come to life. Anything you do with your mind, I'm going to say this, anything you do with your mind, now there's a hierarchy to this. Some levels are better than others, and we've talked about this a lot, but the best one is surrender. That's the best one. It's above the, I'm going to freaking kill this. I'm going to kill it. That's the positive. That's being an optimistic. I'm going to kill this. That's only the bell shape. That's the middle. The middle is you before the game putting on the heavy metal music and going like, I am going to kill this. I am the best. I'm going to dominate. Now, it's better than the pessimist. It's better than the victim. But it's not as good as Tom Brady falling asleep before the Super Bowl. No expectations. Not lowering goals. Not lowering goals. I'm going to say it again. It's not lowering goals. The highest level is where there is no goals. That sounds so weird in our goals-oriented. I'm saying because goals are better than being the pessimist. Goals are better, but goals are trying to get you to be the optimist. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to pull you out of the lowest level of mindset, out of the second level, and they're trying to get you to the third level, which is at least healthy. Goals at least get you to healthy, but healthy is not peak. To get to a peak performance state, you need to let go of your goals. You need to let go of your goals. That sounds crazy. I get it. That's the way you get to optimal. That's the way you get to peak. That's the way you get to flow. That's the way you get to being in the zone. Being in the zone is not about, I'm going to shoot a basketball player. I'm going to shoot 60% from the field. That's not it. Because you're going to judge all the time. It's not sitting down to write and going like, I'm going to be a bestseller. I'm going to be a bestseller. You don't write. Everyone's ever written anything worthwhile knows that that's not how you get there. But it gets you off. That might get you off the couch, right? That's part of the motivation and the drive. That's part of the discipline. But once you get that, you take this other blend of it. And the way you get away from being a perfectionist, the way from anxiety, the way from stress, the way from this overbearing pressure is literally by letting go.
Okay, let's just take a quick break to say thank you to a few sponsors, and then we'll get right back into this conversation. We're brought to you this time around by DUER. Are you ready to level up your wardrobe with some seriously comfy and stylish gear? I hope so. Let's talk about DUER. You can learn more about DUER, DUER, by stopping in at one of their flagship stores in LA or Denver, or if you're like me in the woods of Maine, go online, shopduer.com/excellence, and you can even save yourself 20% off your first order when you do. DUER's stretch performance denim and lifestyle apparel are truly built for doing. Whether you're at work, traveling, or just relaxing, their clothes are designed to keep up with you all day long. But what really sets DUER apart, I've got 3 reasons for you. First, they're on a mission to eliminate plastic from their apparel. That's right, 95% of the fibers they use are plant-based or recycled, making their clothes naturally breathable, soft, and moisture absorbing. Second, DUER owns their factory, ensuring high quality across all products and maintaining safe and ethical operations. And lastly, they focus on timeless, seasonless styles. This means you can do more with just a few well-made pieces, reducing waste and keeping your wardrobe versatile. In other words, it won't fall apart after one season and you won't have to go back out and buy another pair at the mall. Nobody likes going to the mall. Let's stop going to the mall. Let's level up your wardrobe now by heading to shopduer.com/excellence. Get yourself 20% off your first order, which is an amazing deal. Don't wait. Go to shopduer, DUER.com/excellence and experience the perfect blend of comfort, style, and sustainability. We're also brought to you this time around by a new sponsor, Manukora. Here's the thing. I already think you're pretty sweet, but if you want to bump it up another notch, you need to check out the simple and delicious honey from Manukora. Head to manukora.com/excellence to learn more and to get $25 off their starter kit. I'll spell that for you at the end of the ad. Now, you might be putting regular old boring honey into lots of food, breakfast, tea, salad dressings, you name it. But let me tell you, Manukora is going to put all that grocery store honey to shame. Its richness, creaminess, and complexity of flavor are just unbeatable, not to mention the incredible health benefits. It's ethically produced by Manukora's master beekeepers in the remote forests of New Zealand. This honey is packed with powerful nutrients to support immunity and gut health. The bees collect nectar from the Manuka tea tree in New Zealand, which has 3 times more antioxidants and prebiotics than your average honey. Plus, it contains a special antibacterial compound called MGO. Just 1 teaspoon each morning can help you get the most out of the amazing bioactives in Manuka. Manukora honey is rich, creamy, and the most delicious honey you've ever had. Head to manukora.com/excellence to get $25 off the starter kit, which includes an MGO 850 plus Manuka honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, and a guidebook. The wooden spoon's really cool, actually. That's manukora.com/excellence, manukora.com/excellence. Okay, let's get back into the conversation. I love this concept of suspending judgment. And a lot of what you just said was kind of preemptive suspension of judgment. I'm not going to worry about whatever I place in this. I'm not going to worry about writing a best-selling book. Can you talk a little bit about how, or the challenges of suspending judgment in the moment and perhaps in hindsight, right? Like I just performed at that event, or I just gave a speech and I didn't do a good job. I'm disappointed in myself. I imagine that there's just as much detriment to judging oneself yesterday, the yesterday version of myself, as there is the tomorrow version. What similarities, and maybe if there are any differences, are there in the suspension of judgment for what I just did, or what I'm currently in the middle of doing? I'm not performing well. Oh no.
Judgment is different than what we were just talking about as the future self part, right? Which creates anxiety. Judgment is different than preparation. I'm not saying don't be prepared. At the same point, regret is not the same thing as not learning. So those are different things. People go, okay, so if I do that, then I'm gonna get rid of everything. No, I'm asking you to get rid of the judgment, let go of the judgment aspect to it. But in terms of the learning, if you were to do a public speech and you're like, man, I really blundered that. I'm not saying just like, okay, now on to the next one. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying do all of the work. Do all of the work. Remember, it's a perfect blend. It's not totally let's let go of the judgment, but it's not let go of the work. It's not letting go of the learning. Review it. Do the hard stuff. The problem is people are so judgmental, they won't even go back and watch their film. Because like, I'm never watching that again, man. That was terrible. I never want to relive that moment again. Well, how is that helping us? It's the opposite of that. Don't worry. It's outside of your control. That has happened. Now, can we pull from it? Can we learn from it? Can we improve going forward? Let's do all of those things. We're not going to beat ourselves up over it. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to let go of all of the judgment, past or future, and live in this moment and try to get as much out of this moment. Soak it all in as much as we possibly can. Judgment will always be a negative. It will always. It's going to always, unless it's getting you out of a victim mindset and up a little bit, which is like, that's where like some recognition of good and bad can actually help a little bit. But what we're talking about is like a peak state, and it will always be a detriment to a peak state. And we can learn from our past without judging our past. Those are not the same things. If you're looking through it and going like, yeah, see, this is where I sucked. Oh God, I can't believe I said that. Of course. If you're dating and you're doing blind dates and you go on a blind date and you totally blow it, well, okay, like next time let's show up early so you're not late. Like you can learn from that. And maybe you don't go to a rave because that's kind of weird, and you learn from that. And you learn from things. I'm not saying don't learn from them at all, but you just don't judge. You go, I can't believe I'm such an idiot. I went to a rave and I showed up 80 minutes late and everyone was already way deep into their Molly, and like I was the dork in the side, and we don't need to. We can learn from things without judging it. Go, oh, well, that didn't serve me very well. I'll change that going forward. And if you do, what happens is the next time you go on a date, or you do your thing, you're bringing that in. And if you brought a lot of judgment from that last one, you're going to bring that in, and you're going to be judging yourself in the present moment. Am I saying the right thing? Does she like me? Do I have something in my teeth? And you're going to be outside yourself. The best thing you can do is let your natural self, the 10,000 hours of, if you're an athlete or a musician or a business person, but your entire life, if you're on a date, let you flow out without the extra layer of judgment on top of it. Does she like me?
It's interesting to me
well?
that this relationship between judging versus learning. I think it's interesting because judging ourselves is both. It's paradoxically, it's both the worst thing we can do and the easiest thing we can do. And learning is the most valuable thing we can do. And for whatever reason, it's the hardest thing to do. I'm curious, how do you get beyond, in your mind, get beyond the judgment and into the learning phase? Because a lot of times, yes, that sounds great. I can learn from this. But oftentimes that means, at least when you're figuring that process out, it means sitting with the discomfort that you would normally judge yourself on. I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I did that. On the other end of that might be the learning. And so we've got to be able to wade through at least some of that discomfort, some of that judgment. Is there a way to just skip the negative of the judgment and get to the learning?
No, what that means is if you are reviewing something, or you feel yourself future analyzing something, and you feel yourself judging, we've skipped some steps. We're not ready for it yet. It's simply that. You put 315 on the barbell and try to clean and jerk it when you've never clean and jerked 225. It's this. It's a matter of how much can you handle before you label good or bad. That's what we're trying to do, honestly, is get away from labeling things as good or bad. That's where it starts. And we need to start with we have to start with some layups. We have to start with an empty barbell before we start doing Steph Curry half-court shots or Matt Fraser, 385 clean and jerks. That's what we need to be able to do. So what we start doing is you wake up in the morning and you're ready for a great day, and on your way to do your work in your shed where you are now, your son spills coffee on you. What goes through your head? If it goes through your head this sucks, oh no, this is bad. Okay, this is our work. This is the work. Can we not label that as bad? That sounds I get it. How can that not be bad? Well, we don't have the perspective to understand what is good or bad. We are not God. We don't know what is good or bad for us in this moment. Katrin missing the games, Lance Armstrong getting cancer. These in the moment seem like the worst things that have happened to these people, but they're the best things that have happened to these people. So for us to say a bad presentation, I use that word in air quotes, bad, a presentation that you are not happy with was bad, you're labeling something that you have no right to label. This is the highest. Now we're getting a little bit to the actual quantum field. Literally, when you talk about the quantum, this is we don't understand the energy systems that are happening and why things are happening. So for us to get all bummed out about something is ridiculous. You're literally spilling your energy. You have energy. You're spilling it out on the side, not using it productively. This is why you cannot reach your max potential if you're judging things as good or bad when you have no understanding of whether they're good or bad. So what can you handle? What can you not label as good or bad? Can you not label your son spilling coffee on you as good or bad? Cool. That's really awesome. As you're walking to your shed, you trip over the garden hose and sprain your ankle. What goes through your mind? That's more challenging, a lot more challenging. Can you not label that as bad? Woo! Good on you if you can. That's awesome. Cool. Then later on that day, you're scrolling through social media You see a picture that your gym posted of you working out with no shirt on. And the first 3 comments are of the light of, hey there, chubby. Ooh, are you labeling that as good or bad? Like, what level, all this thing is like, what level can you get to before you label things? Are you the type of person that if it rains, you label that as bad? Like, I'm sorry, but I feel bad for you. And I don't mean that in like a pity way. I mean that is like I really do. Like, I feel empathy for you because I know how hard your life is. This is our work. This is what we are here to do. Now, we can do it in the pursuit of CrossFit Games. We can do it in the pursuit of being an awesome dad. We can do it in the pursuit of an entrepreneur. But all of those are just the playing fields that we get to learn and evolve our consciousness. And the way we evolve that consciousness starts with not labeling things as good or bad. And if you do that, now we've released judgment, which is literally the thing holding us back from living a full life. We want to talk about fulfillment. Fulfillment starts with the freedom to experience life as it's actually happening, not through the paradigm of the conscious programming of our past, which is the reason we label things as good or bad. It's the only reason we do. It's built into us because of a survival mechanism, which no longer serves us. It was cool when we were being chased by saber-tooth tigers, when there was famine and most people did not live past the age of 28. That was built into our DNA. Today, if you're bummed out because someone said something about you on social media, that is the mechanism kicking in that is holding you back from living your life. If we can figure out where's the threshold. In CrossFit, we know threshold training is the magic to making gains. All threshold means is how much can you handle before you tip over into the red area psychologically or physically. It's the same thing with this. Well, Patrick, you can handle the coffee. Awesome. You can handle the sprained ankle. You can handle people saying bad things about you on social media. You are a pretty evolved being. That's freaking amazing. Can you handle your kid getting sick? Because I can't. I'm not there yet. Yeah. But that's now we can figure out, where are we? What can we handle? This is our work. This is the challenge.
I love that. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Ben. That was great. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. Thank you for your ratings and your reviews. Ben and I will be back next week for another episode of Chasing Excellence.